Hello and namaskar viewers, I'm Sanjeev Pandya welcoming you to this week's edition of the Business Talk with AJ. The show is brought to you by Science CPA Services, a full-fledged professional accounting firm located in the state of New Jersey, multiple locations in New Jersey. They can help you with the personal taxes, your corporation taxes, business taxes, payroll matter, bookkeeping services, virtual CEO, CFO, just to make sure that your business is running smoothly. You can pay attention to your business, and Science CPA Services believes in doing taxes right. So for any tax matter need or any accounting service need, bookkeeping service need, you can contact Science CPA Services at 908-380-6876 or visit their website sciencecpaservices.com. The Business Talk with AJ brings you now in-depth details of different businesses where mainly South Asians are involved into it, in and out of the business, what really takes to start a business, why is it so important to manage a business very efficiently, and what are the challenges that businesses fail, which could lead to the success of the business or the failure of the business. So all that you really need to know about business in different categories, that's what we bring it to you. And for that matter, I'd like to welcome Mr. AJ Kumar of Science CPA Services, CPA and MBA with Science CPA Services, over 30 years of experience, brings all the information that we really need to know about different businesses. AJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sanjeevji. Thank you for the kind introduction.
You're very welcome. And this week we're going to talk about pharmacies. Pharmacy is something that we all go to pharmacy, but how do really pharmacies operate businesses? What kind of pharmacies are there? What are the challenges they are facing with the insurance companies and how they are really managing businesses? We know that pharmacists are successful, and we hear that they are, really make good amount of money. But let's look in the detail of this community pharmacist business.
Yeah, absolutely, Sanjeevji. So there are thousands of privately owned pharmacies. In today's show, we'll try to give you as much information as possible to start a pharmacy, to run a pharmacy, to run it successfully, to make it profitable. We are not talking about Walgreens, CVS or drug fair here. We are talking about mom and pop pharmacies. We are talking about privately owned small pharmacies, and I'm just saying small comparatively. Some of these pharmacies are 100 pharmacy chain, meaning same group or same private ownership have more than one pharmacy, 10, 20, even 100 pharmacies. So when it comes to the pharmacy business, as you would imagine, a licensing requirement is tricky. But before we get into the details, the nitty-gritty of it, Sanjeevji, a lot of people ask this question: do I have to be a pharmacist to start a pharmacy? So you don't have to be a pharmacist to start a pharmacy. You have to have a pharmacist working at the pharmacy to start the pharmacy. But that can be a hired job. So as a shareholder, as an owner, you can start the pharmacy actually without having the pharmacy license. So just to make sure, anybody can start the pharmacy. In our South Asian community, a lot of these pharmacy you go, they are all owned by our own South Asian people.
Okay. So now, as I understand, there are various categories of pharmacies. You see pharmacy in a hospital, you see pharmacy, right where you live on the street and whatnot. And this, again, we're talking, non-franchise pharmacies.
Yeah, absolutely. So privately owned pharmacies. At a high level, we divide these privately owned pharmacies into three categories. We call it community pharmacy, where the pharmacy is located in your community. Right next to you is a privately owned pharmacy. We'll talk about that pharmacy as how much are the profit margin, how does the business work, what licensing requirements are there. Then we can talk about the hospital pharmacy, where the pharmacy is located within the hospital. So the pharmacy is serving the need of the patient that are going to the hospital, and in those cases, typically you will see hospital pharmacies are 24-hour pharmacy,
okay,
as opposed to community pharmacy that has limited hours. The third pharmacy, that when we talk about the clinical pharmacies, they are typically for the new drugs. They are associated with the hospital, with a big medical facility. They are typically in the business to check the adverse effect or the preventive measures of a new upcoming drug, and that's referred as clinical pharmacy. They are not typically meant for public use. Hospital pharmacy is meant for public use, but in a limited capacity, in a limited setting, and are typically 24 hours pharmacy. Community pharmacy have limited hours, and those are the privately owned pharmacies.
Okay, so now these are the three types of pharmacies: community pharmacy, hospital pharmacy, retail pharmacies, right? What what are the things the different that sets them apart? I understand the multiple permits and licenses and everything required, right? But where do you see majority of the pharmacies? You see the community pharmacies more or clinical pharmacies?
Clinical pharmacies are rare, not that many. Each clinical pharmacy is associated with certain number of new drugs, and we don't really have a lot of new drugs coming in the market every day. So if you look at the number of pharmacy, community pharmacy are the highest number, after of course the franchise pharmacies, and then you see the hospital pharmacy. Each hospital, at least the bigger ones, will have their own pharmacy. And then number 3 in terms of number of pharmacy is the clinical pharmacy.
Okay, so now these are the 3 pharmacies, and obviously, they face a very uphill battle with the insurance companies, different insurance companies. And whatnot.
Absolutely, as you rightly pointed out, a lot of these pharmacies are not paid by the consumer, unless it's an OTC, unless it's an over-the-counter, all prescribed medicines. When somebody brings this prescription, they give the medicine to the consumer. They charge some copay, $10, $20, but the actual amount of money is paid by the insurance company. Now take a step back. How many insurance companies are there? You have Medicare, you have Medicaid, you have state insurance, you have private insurance, you have federal insurance, you have government insurance. So there are plethora of insurance companies. Now anybody can walk in your door and they can have any type of insurance that they want. It's your responsibility as a pharmacist, as a pharmacy business owner, to have the relationship with that insurance company to make sure you are getting paid. So starting a new pharmacy can take 6 to 9 months in the order of getting all the insurance approval. There are some of the bigger ones, Aetna and Cigna. There are some bigger pharmacists, bigger insurance companies, but then there are a lot of smaller ones that a lot of people will walk in and bring in a prescription and say, I want the medicine, and you have to give the medicine. Now it's your problem to deal with the insurance company to collect the money.
All right, so now having said that, you need to have 6 to 9 months of operating expenses on hand because insurance companies, pays late. What is initial capital investment required to start a pharmacy?
Absolutely. So as you would imagine, the initial capital investment will depend on the location, the size, on some of the factors, but the minimum investment we expect is about $150,000 to start a pharmacy. Small one, you can have the larger, more money you spend, better location, more medicines you have. A lot of these manufacturers like Kinray, McKesson, they give you certain terms, but when you are starting a new business, when you are starting a new pharmacy, a lot of these manufacturers are not giving 30 days, 60 days or 90 days terms. A lot of terms will be 15 days term, 21 days term. So you have to work with the manufacturer to make sure you give them lump sum money to create the credibility. You pay them on time so they can increase the lending term for you. But I mean, depending on the location, depending on the size, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to start the pharmacy.
All right, then obviously we're talking about on top of that inventory and furniture and equipment and all the other stuff also to have it in a pharmacy.
Absolutely. So if you look at the largest expense for the pharmacy, probably inventory is going to be the largest expense. I mean, you have to have all these medicines in your shop to be able to give it to the patient. Whenever somebody is bringing the prescription, you have to have that medicine, otherwise it doesn't work. You can't really say, please drop the prescription now and come back after 7 days, I'll try to get the medicine for you. I mean, in some cases, in extreme cases, it's okay, but that's not how the business works. So inventory is the largest expense. You have to have fixture, furniture, you have to hire somebody, you have to have the leasehold improvement. So there are some initial investment. Again, bigger the location, better the location, bigger the pharmacy, higher the expenses you are expecting.
Okay, that really gets too much of detail. Obviously, you need to have a lot of money to have your own pharmacy. And again, the competition with the CVS and Walgreens and those big guys.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. It's not easy to survive in this business, a lot of competition. So location becomes extremely important. If you have a CVS, if you have a Walgreens right next to it, it's going to be very difficult for you to have a private pharmacy to survive right next to it. So you have to have a situation, you have to have a location where there are not many bigger pharmacies. Now Amazon has their own pharmacy, Walmart has their own pharmacy, ShopRite is trying to have their own pharmacy. So the business is very tricky. Business gets difficult when every location is trying to get into the pharmacy. Why are they all getting into the pharmacy? margins are good, profits are higher. That's why you have Amazon pharmacy, Walmart location. They have their own pharmacy. They have the location already. They don't have to pay extra lease, extra rent, extra space. They just create a corner and now they are in the pharmacy business just with this, with some licensing requirement. That's why competing with these big chain, these leasehold places is very difficult for a mom and pop shop. That's why a lot of small pharmacies are merging together, creating a bigger group, bigger chain, so they have the buying power. When it comes to buying the medicine in bulk from the manufacturer, bigger the location or multiple locations you have, more buying power it will create, more negotiation power you will have.
All right, so now I guess one thing is very clear that pharmacies really, their substantial amount of revenue comes from OTC, over-the-counter products.
Absolutely.
Right? That's where they're going to come in because insurance companies regulate drug prices and everything, and after the copay, they're only going to get certain amount of money and whatnot, unless it's a what do they call the top of the line drug, expensive drug. Then I guess their profit margin can be higher.
Right.
But most of the revenue by pharmacy is generated through these over the counter, all kinds of different medicines or care products and everything.
Beauty products.
Creams. Yeah. Bilkul. All right, so that's the one, and just to let you know, in case if you have just joined in, there are three types of pharmacies. One is a retail pharmacy, one is a hospital pharmacy, and the third one is clinical pharmacy. We talked about those three pharmacies and what it really takes to start a pharmacy, capital investment, how much it takes, and inventory and whatnot. But one thing is very clear that you don't have to be a pharmacist to start a pharmacy. You can hire. You must have a licensed pharmacist on board to run that business. So that is just the notes for this segment. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue to give you more information on these business pharmacies. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the second half of the Business Talk with AJ show. This is the weekly show that brings you insight of business, different categories of business where mostly South Asians are in it. And we've been covering a lot of topics, like a trucking business, an IT business, and this week we're talking about the pharmacy business. And every week there is going to be a different topic that AJ will touch upon and will give information that we really need to know. So pharmacy business, as we continue, obviously it requires a capital investment and enough cash on hand if you don't get paid from the insurance company for 6 to 9 months, if your pharmacy is very busy, with the prescribed medications. So now let's talk about the financing. Where do you get the financing? What are the options for the financing? And we're going to start with the first of all, SBA loans.
Absolutely, Sanjeevji. So SBA loan is 704 is typically what we use for this thing. It's typically given out for 10 years, and you hope in 10 years you have created enough wealth, enough assets to pay back the SBA loan, so you don't need the funding anymore. The problem with the SBA loan, Sanjeevji, it takes 6 to 9 months to get the approval. So if you are starting a business, unless you have a 6 to 9 months plan and a very good credit history, a clean tax history, SBA loan is difficult. A lot of people, when it comes to the financing, will start with either private financing or their own money or friends and family money. So if you have home, you can always take out home equity line of credit to fund the initial investment. You can go to friends and family to have the initial investment. You can go to private lenders who will charge you a little bit higher interest than the bank, or you can go to a private bank. A lot of banks, unless you have other businesses, wouldn't really give you the money for a new business. So finding the initial money is difficult. But once the business is running, once you have, let's say for 1 year, 2 years history around it, then it's not that difficult for a pharmacy business to find money. And mainly because you have a lot of assets. Where is your money sitting? In account receivable. It shows up on the balance sheet that you have this much account receivable coming from these insurance companies. So when the bank is lending you the money, they are typically looking at two things. First, they want to look at the asset, which is mainly your account receivable, cash in bank, or they are looking at furniture fixture. So asset aside, they are looking at that you have enough asset, good credit history, and second part they are looking at is the cash flow. A pharmacy is a good cash flow business. For the first 6 months, 9 months is tricky because a lot of insurance company takes time, but once the ball starts getting rolling, then you're getting money for the medicine that you sold 6 months ago. So every day you have money coming in, every day you have money going out, and it becomes a cycle. So it's a cash flow positive business when it comes to pharmacy after 1 year, after a year and a half, especially depending on when you start the business. If you have 2 years of tax return, getting the financing through a regular bank is very easy when it comes to financing.
Okay,
For the pharmacy.
are there other options such as inventory financing and line of credit and
Absolutely. So there are business line of credit which is typically available after n number of years, typically 2 years. Inventory financing is done through the supplier. You can always go to manufacturer, say I'm starting this new pharmacy, I have these businesses, I have good credit history. Instead of 15 days, can I pay you back in 60 days? Sometimes you will have to sort of negotiate on the price. Manufacturer would want slightly more money as opposed to less money if you pay in advance. A lot of these manufacturers are happy to give you some discount if you are paying in advance or paying in 15 days. But if you are looking for terms where you want to pay in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a lot of these manufacturers will not give you the set discount. That's why in these days you will see a lot of smaller pharmacies clubbing together, grouping together, even though they are independently owned, to create the buying power, to make sure when they go to these manufacturers, they have better terms, longer terms to pay. A lot of these small business owners are clubbing together, grouping together now.
Okay, all right. So now, so far we have talked about the types of pharmacies and then, how much capital investment required and what are the source of investment and the loan and whatnot, to start the pharmacy. Now let's look into the expense side for this typical pharmacy business and how does the tax implications come in?
Absolutely. For a pharmacy, you typically will have the payroll tax because you have to have the employees working for you. You cannot be working alone behind the counter, in front of the counter. So you will typically see payroll expenses, will also see the sales tax expenses. A lot of OTC product, these makeup, creams and everything else, you have the sales tax on those items, even if you have no sales tax on the medicine. So typically, even though the sales tax amount is not high, in many cases you can get away by doing the sales tax every quarter as opposed to every month. But sales tax filing is in most cases mandatory when it comes to pharmacy. And of course you will have the income tax filing. When it comes to the income tax filing, you will have the state filing and the federal filing. Just remember, if you have multiple pharmacies, it's a good idea for you to keep separate businesses. You don't want to have multiple locations under one EIN number. What happens if there is any problem with one pharmacy, one location, they will tend to close all the locations under that EIN number. So if you have two pharmacies and God forbid something is to happen into one pharmacy, one EIN number, somebody is closing down that pharmacy, you can move all the medicines overnight to the second location and you are still in business. Or you can still serve the customers based on the second location. So when it comes to pharmacy, a little bit of guidance can go a long way.
Okay, and if someone wants to start a pharmacy, what kind of corporation that they should really set up?
In most cases, a lot of pharmacies are either LLC or S corporation, unless you have foreign ownership, which is not common for the pharmacies because the licensing requirement is extremely difficult. Most pharmacy owners have LLC / S professional corporation, we call it S corporation. If you are the pharmacist, you are running the pharmacy, go with the S corporation to begin with. If you intend to hire pharmacist working under you, working for you, then having the LLC / S conversion, S classification will make sense.
Okay. All right. So basically we have covered all these things that we really need to know about these pharmacies. Now, how does a pharmacy in a hospital work? Can an individual owner start a pharmacy in the hospital, or is it strictly owned by the hospital, that pharmacy?
It's done either way. In most cases, what we have seen, these are the tenders that are given by the hospital to certain people. All hospitals have board. They will say we need the pharmacy over there. The investment in the pharmacy is $1 million. Hospital doesn't have $1 million extra to start the pharmacy. So they will create the tender. Anybody who pays $250,000 to hospital will have the right to run the pharmacy for next 10 years, next 7 years. So a lot of these tenders are issued, and typically these hospital pharmacies are privately owned pharmacies just located within the hospital.
All right. And when it comes to insurance companies, do they have a different prices for, let's say, pharmacy giants like CVS and Walgreens versus mom and pop owned pharmacy or hospital pharmacy? Do they have a different prices for any drug?
Well, yes and no. The way the system works, mostly the insurance company will have a fixed price for CVS, for Walgreens, for a private pharmacy. But being CVS, they are able to buy the same medicine at a much discount rate. So even though the insurance company is paying them the flat $10 just because they bought it for $2, as opposed to a private pharmacist who is paying $3 for the pharmacy medicine, their margins could be very different. Their margins could be higher, being having the buying power. That's why a lot of smaller pharmacists, we said, are clubbing together to create the buying power.
And the location of the pharmacy also matters the most, right?
Absolutely, 100%. If your pharmacy is located in a suburban area, that will be a little bit more expensive. If there is no other CVS, Walgreens, drug fair around you, if there is no Walmart around you, then you have better chances to be successful in that area, in that region, as opposed to having a pharmacy where you have right next to Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens.
Why would somebody go to a mom and pop pharmacy versus Walgreens or CVS if they have them
many
in the
reasons?
same area?
Many reasons. First, convenience. When you go to pharmacy, you are not trying to find the cheapest price, because the insurance company has decided that you have to pay $10. So for you, it doesn't really matter. I'm paying $10. Anybody who gives me the medicine is okay for me. So people are looking for convenience right next door. Second, at least the perception is when you go to these smaller pharmacies, you have better hand-holding, better service, and people remember your name. Hey, AJ, how are you? How are you feeling now? I have your medicine ready. As opposed to when you go to Walgreens or CVS, where there are thousands of customers coming in and they don't know who is working tomorrow. A smaller pharmacist, owner is working over there, the same pharmacist is working over there, as opposed to CVS, Walgreens, where the employees may be changing every day.
All right. So yeah, obviously this mom and pop pharmacies, has some advantages. They can also deliver drugs to your home if you just give them a call.
Absolutely. Well, that's being done by all the pharmacies. Even Walgreens, CVS, they deliver drugs at their home too.
But then what I was going to say is that to stay in a competition with the big giants, that is the main important thing for the mom and pop pharmacies.
And that's why, as you rightly said, location is very important.
Location is important. Now, when they have invested money, let's say $250,000, $500,000, what is their rate of return? How long really does it take for them to get that money back?
It depends on location to location. So typically, the rate of return varies from 12% to 18%. In most cases. So if you, depending on what volume you have, and you have to remember there are a lot of fixed costs around it. So you have to have X number of salary, you have to have rent, leasehold improvements. There are a lot of fixed costs around it. So coming up with a number and me promising you 16 to 18% return, that's not how it works. It's a lot of hard work around it. But in the long run, after at least 1 year, 2 years, you can expect an ROI of between 12 to 18% around it.
All right. So in the end, the only challenge that they would have, mom and pop pharmacies, is to have their licensed pharmacist on board with the salary package and the benefits and everything. That is the last thing we're going to cover, as we have less than a minute to go.
Absolutely. So if you are not the pharmacist yourself, what do you have to make sure to run the pharmacy? That you have somebody over there.
Yeah.
How do you make sure you have somebody over there guaranteed? Otherwise, you cannot be in the business. That's why you start giving them some benefit, some percentage ownership in the business, some profit percentage, 401k, defined benefit plan, to keep them hooked up with the pharmacy, to keep them there with you in your business, because you cannot run the pharmacy without a pharmacist.
All right. Okay. With that note, we come to an end of this week's episode, The Business Talk with AJ. And today's topic was the pharmacists, multiple pharmacies, and how do pharmacists, run the business, how they operate their business, and what challenges they face. So we got insight from Mr. AJ about the pharmacy business. I'd like to thank Mr. AJ for taking time out to be part
Absolutely.
of the show. The show is brought to you by Science CPS Services. You can contact Science CPS Services at 908-380-6876 or visit their website sciencecpsservices.com. I am Sanjeev Pandya. Until we meet again, wishing you all happy and a safe week ahead. So long.
Thank you.